If you're going to model a specific time period on your model railroad, picking an era can be a huge deal. It not only affects what you're modeling, but your budget as well. So, what is the best era to model? Let's talk about it.
A special thanks to these model railroad businesses for supporting the channel in one way or another. Hey everybody, my name is Jimmy. Welcome to Coffee and Trains. Today I'm just drinking some more of whatever was in the coffee pot this morning. If you want to tell me what kind of coffee you are drinking and have it featured just like these guys right here, you can do that in the comments below, and who knows, you might see your comment pop up on an episode of Coffee and Trains. A lot of fun there. Cheers, guys. When we're talking about eras, we can really break it down into 5 main eras in the US. Early steam, 20th century steam, transition era, mid-century diesel, and modern diesel. These eras span from the middle of the 19th century all the way to today. Let's start with early steam. Early steam is all about the 19th century. This means a lot of custom steam engines that were named, plus a lot of wooden rolling stock. This is actually one of the hardest ones to find because it's the least in demand. If you want to model the mid to late 19th century, get ready to be patient and pay a bit more for those models to get exactly what you want. You may also need to scratch build more structures as well as locomotives and rolling stock. Most people don't choose to model this era, not only because it's a harder era to source material for, but there is less reference material than in other areas. Next, let's move into the 20th century steam. This is the beginning of the golden age of railroading. There is a ton of reference material and the widest variety of steam engines for this era. Now, it actually begins really in the late 19th century and runs all the way into the 1930s, which was the pinnacle of the pure steam railroads. After this time, diesels began to be introduced. If you're going to model 20th century steam, think of the 1900s through the 1920s. This was the time of some of the most famous passenger and freight routes. Rail was the dominant transit system in the country, and it was entirely steam-powered. This means you can find a lot of models to fit this era. The one problem with modeling steam is that it is traditionally more expensive than diesel because it has more moving parts and therefore harder to manufacture. You're still going to be able to find a lot of items for this era, though. Next up is arguably the most popular era to model, which is the transition era. This time period is from the 1930s to the 1960s. This is where you see a lot of both steam and diesel. This was the time of big steam engines like the Big Boy and other articulated engines, as well as the famous F-unit diesels and streamliners, plus some of the most famous passenger trains that ever ran. There's no question that you can find the most models for this era. This is far and away the most popular era to model. You're going to find the most cost-effective models in this time period as well, mainly because there is so much made. So if you are looking to spend a bit less on models versus other eras, transition is a great one. You'll also find a lot of great reference material to look at to make your layouts more accurate to the time that they are modeling. The second most popular time period to model is mid-century diesel. This spans from the late 1950s to the early 1990s. This was truly a unique time. You saw a plethora of diesel designs because you still had some of the big steam companies like Baldwin and Alco making diesels to start out. But you also have expansion of companies like EMD and the introduction of GE to the mix. In addition to all the different diesel models, you still have a wide range of road names to pick from. The consolidation of railroads was still in progress, so a lot of fallen flags were still operating. So you can see a variety of paint schemes during this era. In terms of models, you're going to have a wide selection of freight cars for this era, though you will have less passenger service options because of fewer passenger trains running. You're going to definitely be modeling more freight service. A lot of modelers grew up in this era and they choose to model it, which is why it is so popular as well. The last era is modern diesel. This era is marked by consolidation into the main roads that we see today and a dramatic switch from the EMD-dominated locomotive fleets to GE-dominated fleets. Right now, it is not as popular as mid-century diesel because the people who grew up in this era, just like me, are really just beginning to enter their prime modeling age. So there is a bunch of models out there, but they tend to be a bit expensive because they aren't in quite as much of demand as older models, and a lot of the newer locomotives and rolling stock don't benefit from tooling that has been around for a long time, so a lot of models have higher startup costs. As time goes on, this era will slowly get less and less expensive as more molds are made and more models are produced. One cool thing about this era is that a lot of the older locomotives are now serving as road switchers, yard switchers, and main power on short lines. So you can still use mid-century locomotives on modern diesel layouts. You can also use steam engines as modern excursion trains. Modern diesel will slowly usurp mid-century as the number 2 era to model, but it will more than likely never take over number 1 from the transition era. So, which era is best? Well, it depends on what you want out of your railroad. Picking an era is a big decision if you're sticking to a time period. Ultimately, it comes down to what you like best. Base your decision on that first, and you will be happy. Before we go, check out these great model railroad businesses.
Miniprints creates 3D printed detail parts, figures, and animals that make your model railroad layout come alive. Get 15% off with code DIY15 at miniprints.com, because it's the little things that matter most. Trains in the Valley. Trains in the Valley is a model train shop located in Pennsylvania. They sell new and used model trains with a mission to make trains accessible to everyone. You can check them out at trainsinthevalley.com, link in the description. Penguin 3D Workshop offers 3D prints and electronics for model railroading, specializing in hard or impossible to find train parts, and they also offer custom designing and printing. Use promo code DDRR5OFF to get 5% off your order. Model Railway Backshop is a great place if you're looking for a quality paint job for your old or new brass model locomotive. If you're looking to get that brass model weathered, you can get that done too. And right now you can get 10% off any brass model painting and weathering job by using the promo code NMRA10. Check them out at modelrailwaybackshop.com.
Thank you all so much for watching. Until next time, I'm Jimmy from the DIY and Digital. Stay safe, be kind, drink some coffee, and happy railroading.